I got caught stealing. Story time. One time I was in the dollar store with my mom and she told me I wasn't allowed to get anything because earlier I was misbehaving. But while we were walking around, I seen this really cool rainbow pen and it had all the colors in one pen. Like, where else am I gonna find that? So I begged her and begged her and begged her, but unfortunately she still said no. But I was gonna get that pen, okay? So when she turned around, I took the pen and put it in the back of my pants and I held it in between my cheeks. And I walked around that store so uncomfortable for like 10 whole minutes. Finally, we get to the register and everything is going so perfectly. The guy rings us up and we start to walk out the store. Unfortunately, my cheeks were not strong enough and they lost grip of the pen and it slides out of my pants. And when it hits the floor, the guy at the cash register notices and he's like, "Hey, something fell out of your pants, bud." And I knew what he was talking about, but I just pretended that I didn't. And I was like, what is it? My mom looked down at that pen and back at me and then she started taking off her belt. My friend almost went blind. Story time. When I was younger, I used to go with my friend and her family and they would take us to the lake. And the lake was super fun. It was super chill. The water was really nice. They only had one rule, and that rule was to not go fishing in the water. But of course people don't listen, so occasionally they would go fishing in the water. So one day while we were swimming in the lake minding our own business, we noticed that there was a group of people breaking the no fishing rule. But it wasn't really bothering us, so we just continued to swim around. Well, one of the boys decided that he was going to throw his fishing hook way out into the water where we were. And the hook lands right in between me and my friend. And when the boy realizes where his hook landed, he yanks it back. And when he yanks it back, it smacks my friend in the face. And the hook ends up snagging her super close to her eye, like right here. So her family had to cut the wire and take her to the hospital to get the hook removed. And then the doctor said if the hook would have been any closer to her eye, she would have been blinded. My friend ate her pets. Story time. When I was in college, living in the dorms, we were not allowed to have pets. And at the time, I was friends with this girl and we're gonna name her Vicky. And she was known for not following the rules. So one day, Vicky decides that she's gonna get some pet snails and bring them into the dorms. So she buys like 4 snails, buys them a little bowl, gets them little decorations, and sets them up inside of her room. And she was able to keep them a secret for about a month. Until one day, we had room inspections. So the RAs go around inspecting everybody's room and then they come to mine. And while they're in my room, I text Vicky and I'm like, "Hey girl, they're coming to your room next. Make sure you hide your pet snails." And she texts me back and she's like, "Oh shoot, what am I supposed to do with them?" And jokingly, I was like, "Eat them. They do it in France all the time." So after a while, the inspections are over and I head over to Vicky's room. And when she opened the door, she looked kind of sad. So I was like, "What's wrong? Did they find your snails?" And she was like, "No, I ended up eating them." And I look over and their bowl is empty. I dated a crazy girl. Story time. When I was in middle school, I dated this girl. I know, crazy, right? But we're gonna name her Brianna. And let's just say she was a little weird, but who wasn't in middle school, right? So one day during lunch, I was chewing a piece of gum and I was sitting next to Brianna. Well, my gum started to lose flavor, so I spit it out on my tray. And she looks at it and she goes, "Are you gonna finish your gum?" And I look at her and I'm like, "No." So she picks up my already chewed flavorless gum and puts it in her mouth and starts chewing it. I was so disgusted that I broke up with her right then and there. I'm a savage. Later on that day, we have class together. And Brianna sat in the desk in front of me. So in the middle of class, she turns around and she hands me a note. And on the note, it says, "Can you be my boyfriend again?" So I write on the paper, "Sorry, I'm gay," and hand it back to her. After she read what I wrote, she started bawling. So the teacher came over and asked her if she was okay. And then Brianna yells at him, gets on the floor, and starts banging her head on the ground. I made a little boy cry. Story time. Some of you guys already know this, but I used to babysit kids when I was in high school. Now, most of the kids I babysat were angels, but one of them was the devil. And his name was Gregory. And he would go crazy if he didn't get his way. So one night when I was babysitting him, it had to be around 9 p.m. It was super dark outside. And Gregory wanted to go outside to play. So of course I told him no because it was too dark outside and it's dangerous and yada yada yada. Well, he did not like that answer. So he starts going off on me. He was even using language that an 8-year-old boy shouldn't know. And normally I was able to deal with his temper tantrums, but this time he called me a name. A very offensive name that starts with an F, I'll tell you that much. I was so offended that I pretended to get a call from his mother. And on that call, she told me that his father had just died in a car accident. And when I told him the bad news, it broke his heart. I never worked for them again. I set her on fire. Story time. When I was a toddler, I used to love touching stuff that I was not supposed to. And I'm talking about really dangerous stuff too. Like the stove, scissors, anything sharp really. But the one thing I really liked was fire. It was so bad that I used to sneak into my mom's purse, grab her lighter, and just sit there and play with it. Like, what in the demon child was wrong with me? So one day at my brother's football game, there was this lady sitting in front of us and she had this huge hat on. And I guess I was really bored because I had nothing to do, so I snuck into my mom's purse, grabbed her lighter, and started to spark it on this lady's hat. And everybody was so focused on the football game that they didn't even realize what I was doing until it was too late. And when my mom looked over to see what I was doing, the lady's hat had already caught fire. So my mom starts to panic. She rips off the lady's hat and starts stomping it on the ground to put out the fire. The lady turns around and she's so confused. And apparently I was laughing the whole time.